Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Astro Talk on EA Zoom. I'm Robin Grabfelder, and I'm excited to be here with an amazing panel today. We have Sue Hillyard, Nia Fyler, Ryan Evans, Adrienne Gibson, Chahal, Matthew Engel, and Milloy-Bramel. And today we're going to continue our exploration of this year's planetary alignments and the larger cycles shaping the times that we're living in. And we're going to start off with a solar eclipse happening next week on February 17th. So let's see. There we go. So, does anybody want to start discussing the eclipse, or
I'll start with one little thing that I mentioned last time, but I think it's pertinent, and that is that the eclipse is conjunct the moon of the USA Sibley chart. So with everything that's been going on, I believe that this is going to be a turning point in people speaking up and speaking. So,
yeah, conjunct the moon in the Sibley chart is a really big deal.
Absolutely.
Especially given that the degree point is on the edge of an anaretic degree, which is crisis and transformation.
yes, and square Uranus.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. The ruler of Aquarius, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to definitely affect our population. It affects the people, and it should indicate a renewal in the people's energy toward fighting for what we need.
Robin, with the solar eclipse, we have to remember that it's also an integration point, right? Because the solar energy is integrating something. So there's an opportunity,
Yes.
with all the chaos that's been going on in the world. We forget through the chaos, through the dark, there's light. And it's looking at this as an opportunity for the community, because, Aquarius representing the people to do what's right for everyone collectively rather than individual interests.
Right.
We're also just coming out of the Chiron return for the US Sibley chart. So there is, we're just stretching out of that orb now, but there is opportunity for healing. And it brings up the collective wound, the collective pain. Where has our government abandoned us? Where has our government caused us harm, or our larger power infrastructures?
That's exactly right, Matthew. It's a tremendous opportunity for healing and healing the past and the unresolved trauma.
Yes, and in Aries as well. So it's about, speaking out and standing up and
fighting for peace.
Constructive action.
And since we have a Cancer sun, it creates some tension there with the Cancer sun and the need for resolution and revolution and change.
I just want to mention that as enlightened, progressed people that we are, we always tend to see the nice opportunities of each symbol that appears in our sky. But we must remember that Uranus, Neptune, Saturn conjunction in Aries, they all have a dark side. Uranus is about progression and about looking beyond the horizon and bringing the avant-garde into the mainstream, but it is also about the interests of particular elites in the darker aspects of Uranus.
And everybody's fighting for their cause, whatever the cause happens to be.
And the defragmentation that happens before the re-assimilation into a collective of different groups. It's a process. And Saturn, Neptune, we could look at it as the populace, the proletariat, the underprivileged. Cat, this is not the time. Meeting with the authority of Saturn, with the establishment, with the system, with the people and laws in charge. And it's always a time that we could see the great difference between the wanted and whatever there is. The so-ness of things, as Saturn tells us. This is so. It is not how we feared it might be, but it is not what we dreamed it to be either. So we have the dream, Neptune, and we have Saturn, the structure. But it is a time that we can draw our inspiration and dreams into reality, into form, into frame. But it is also a time that we can see the dissonance between the wanted and the present.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I've heard a lot of political pundits talking about, especially, well, here in the United States, our government is going to have to be redone. And these are people that don't know anything about astrology, but they're talking about this is the time to imagine how we want it to be, how we want it to turn out, and how we want to reform it and redo it.
I like that you said the term reform, because Uranian experiences, or Uranus, the archetype, to me, when I think about it, I think about dismembering, the defragmentation or the fragmentation. To me, I think of the words dismember and then remember. So it's the coming together after things have been broken apart. Which Rav mentioned, the integration, that's the bringing back together, the remembering, and the reforming. So the picture is not going to, I think of a jigsaw, when we break it apart and then we want to put it back together, the picture is not the same as it was before. So that's just how I think of that energy in general.
With that dismembering, I always think of the archetype of the tower in the Tarot. It's just all got to crumble. And in the interest of change, Uranian and Aquarian influence, particularly in the beginning, it's not very well refined. It has to be the recluse. It has to be messy. It has to be rough around the edges in order to break the status quo.
And let's not forget, it's also about re-examining our values, because
Yes.
Uranus, who is ruling the eclipse in Taurus, is squared the eclipse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and also in speaking of remembering, the asteroids Isis and Osiris are working on it. They're coming to a conjunction. They could join every few years in either Aquarius or Leo. And this time it's going to be in Leo, and it's going to be in the summertime when we have this big lineup of everything. And so to me, that's about remembering. I mean, it's, putting things back together.
Yeah. And coming from the heart, the Leo heart space.
Yeah.
Based on our values. I think that's a big part of, what we've experienced as Uranus has transited Taurus is how are we connecting to our own inner resources, our own values, where have we found those places within ourselves individually that we can bring out to the collective. That's what's been important in what I've seen. And so this is like the integration point again, that this eclipse.
Yeah.
I think about the influence on Gaia, the Earth, particularly as Uranus has been traversing Taurus and having that Uranian square at the time of the eclipse. How is Mother Earth responding to all of this? I know there are different points of view on that. That's only one lens to even frame it that way. But what's going on with the Earth, whether it's independently or in response to the collective changes, and sort of I tend to think of it as sort of like the Earth is a living body of energy that is responding to and reacting to the collective.
Right.
It's that micro and macro, right? It's kind of like everything it's being mirrored. There's projection going on. There's There's like Cara just said, it's what is our values? I feel like this whole transit of Uranus and Taurus has been very much about, first of all, coming back to the individuated ego, you know, in figuring out, okay, what is my value? And then going forward into the world with that value, with the mindset of it's not just about me. There's there's a human race out there, the collective race. And we're all, I know um Nia's talking about fragmentation, and 100% that's exactly what's happened, but it's through that fragmentation that we can put the pieces back together. We were just talking before we started recording, and I know we're going to talk about it shortly, but this whole Neptune and Saturn conjunction, it feels like there's an opportunity to kind of set a new kind of civilization, like to be the change we want to be. It's that famous saying by Gandhi, is the opportunity here is how am I stepping forward, and what am I seeing in the world? Is it what I want to see? If not, what can I do to change it? And is it being the voice? Is it being the change? And it's taking those steps. And this solar eclipse, very much for me, is just mirroring that. What are you doing for the collective? And
Well,
how do you want to be going forward?
That is very similar to the way that I see it, is that all of the changes are happening within each one of us individually, and it's the individuals that make up the collective. So until each one of us takes that inner choice to make the change within us, we're not going to see it in the collective.
that's
And I
right,
think that
Adrienne. That's
I
right.
think that's what this eclipse is about. It's really forcing all of us to individuate and to become our inner true selves. Of course, with Chiron that way, we're healing that wound to be able to do that. And we're all being able to step into our natural gifts, our natural, and when we do that, we will come together in a way that's supportive for all of us. That's how I've been seeing it.
Yeah, right on, Adrian. I'm like totally with you there. In fact, when we look at, of course, the South Node in this eclipse, we can say, oh, it's South Node in Virgo, everything's wrong, everything's broken, everything's a mess. And all we have to do is read the newspaper or live in Minneapolis to know that, yes, everything is broken, everything is wrong, and everything is a mess. But that's what's so awesome is that's where we come in. The North Node there in Pisces is reminding us to, uh, amidst our desire to fix things and clean up the mess, to remember that the Super Bowl statement that love is the only thing stronger than hate, and so that Piscean sense of how can we, and this is probably the edgiest thing I could probably say. Let me phrase it this way. In the Christian Bible, Jesus was there getting his wrists nailed into the cross and said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, that's an incredibly Piscean approach to existence. And so, one of my little suggestions with this eclipse and the upcoming adventures in astrology is to remember the Piscean call in all of this. That on some level, as we're pointing out everything that's wrong, that we remember that there is flow, that we can have faith, that we can forgive those people who may ask for it. And even if they don't, the entanglement of our emotions into their nefarious activities is going to keep us from making any, necessary additions or modifications to culture and civilization that we need to make because we're so busy pointing out everything that's wrong and everything that's bad. So, yes, it's necessary. But my hope with this eclipse, 28 plus 29 degrees of Aquarius, that we start to use our noggins and start to develop more innovation, more ways around the obstructions, more ways to deal with the obstructions. We all know that there are obstructions, and we can sit here all day and say, that's bad, and that's bad, and that's bad. But when it comes down to it, what's really important right now and moving forward is doing what we can to inject more love into this world, more patience into this world, more understanding that a lot of the people who are acting nefariously are because of, oh, I don't know, 6,000 years of poor programming. So, an amount of forgiveness and patience, I think, is really, really necessary to help balance out the understandable desire to rage and want to, see the whole thing go up in flames. So, how can we mitigate that in a way that we're not driving ourselves crazy and we're still able to stay in our hearts through all this? I think that's of
Yes.
utmost importance.
If I may, Sue, have a question for you. Or
Sure.
Robin, either one. Is that Lucifer at 14 degrees Virgo?
It is, and it's
Okay.
I believe it's retrograde. Yes, it's retrograde, it's going to go across the south node and back again. And Robin, I muted you because I was hearing feedback. I don't know if you can see your unmute with your sharing your screen, but I can. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. Yes, that is Lucifer, and that's I'm glad you brought that up. What would you like to say about that?
Well,
Because
I'll let you follow me, but in line with everybody else, there's too many voices here to even, credit everyone. It's important for people to not feel helpless, because Lucifer can show us, it can be a trickster, and it can lie to us. And it can show us where we're weak and we're not able to speak and we don't have a voice. And what I'm seeing, the reason I'm here today is because what I'm seeing is person after person after person speaking up and speaking their truth. And that is so powerful. And I've really studied, followed the monks and their walk for peace and their little Virgo dog, Aloka, the Virgo dog. And what they keep saying over and over again is it starts with the individual and it starts within. Peace starts within. You are incredibly powerful. You have an incredible light. And I almost, the spokesperson, Bhikkhu Panakara, I can see tears in his eyes when he speaks. He says, do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Start within. Start praying and meditating now. You're more powerful than you realize. And so there's that Virgo on the south node, the foundation of our eclipses and the foundation of our nodal axis and the foundation, what one of my teachers called your emotional barometer, the world's emotional barometer, Virgo, Virgo, Virgo. Every little person has a voice. And if you watch the reception at the church yesterday with the monks for the peace walk and all the people that stood up and spoke and the prayer of St. Francis, let me be an instrument of thy peace, the little people rising up is very powerful.
I love that you said that. I've been paying a lot of attention over the last year to Mercury, which is the ruler of Virgo. And it's about the perception that we all have, and we all have an individual perception. But with Virgo, if you're looking at the Virgo Pisces axis, where Pisces is the whole and Virgo is the separated out parts, and then the way that we discern, it's like the reality that we are perceiving is through the lens of separation. And when we are separate, we don't see each other as one and the same, and we don't see our neighbors as one and the same, and we don't see the earth as part of us. And that allows us to make these actions where we're just terrible to each other and terrible to the earth. We're not seeing that. And I think what's happening is we're having this integration period between the North and the South node now, where we're coming back into this oneness, where we recognize that we're all part of the same organism. We're all the same in and individual, but that as we bring this in, and then once we have like the connection of this oneness, then we can come into ourselves and realize that within ourselves. And then individually, we have these very special gifts. Each of us has a different gift. We're each born on a very different day. We have We have our own light to shine. But because we've been seeing ourselves as separate and not good enough, the whole Virgo thing, we're afraid to shine our light. And I think that these times right now are to step in and just jump off the edge of the cliff like the fool of the tarot, just like shine your light, because this is, if we don't do it, it's going to be more of the same. We have the opportunity to actually make a change consciously through this Mercury perception and to really speak out, like you were saying earlier, speak what it is that is your truth. And I think that that's a lot to do with this Jupiter that's in Cancer as well.
Well, and
I want
Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, is also the
Listen,
higher.
so glad you're explaining what's happened to me over the past few weeks. Thank you. I really feel like you're talking to me because I think, but I always know that, whatever I'm going through is a general, influence in the sky. And I think we understand that we're all working on an unupdated program, that is the transgression between who we were in the past and who we are now has grown. The rift has grown so vast that if we don't build a bridge now and go to the other side, it might become too wide. That's the trepidation. And
that's
we're
some
all searching in a way for what the right code is. What is this updated version of humanity, of ourselves, of civil society, of nationalism? I hate that word. Somebody told us that, told me that the way humans are behaving in Israel and, other places in the world, they don't deserve a country. So my answer was nobody deserves a country. It's a blasphemy against the earth. In a sense. We're all transgressing against Gaia, thinking that we can own parts of her and that she doesn't own us, you know, mixed up. So, yeah, thank you for.
something I wonder about. I absolutely get the collective and the coming together and the opportunity for building bridges, but I also wonder about individuation that happens with Aries, that I am principle, and whether perhaps part of the coming together and collective is more, could be about individual groups coming together and organizing. And maybe there is a natural divorce that is happening and building in different parts of the world, including the US, where I forget who just said a minute ago, but at a certain point, if the bridge is, I'm paraphrasing, but if the bridge has been burned badly enough, if there's enough of a rift, sometimes it can't be reconciled, but there could be opportunity for each group to build, to create its own reality. And there could be acceptance of having different groups who build their own reality and are living in parallel process. I think
Yeah, I
part
don't
of
know.
what,
It's kind of good
part of
luck
what,
with that one. I mean,
well, I
didn't
know,
we
right?
didn't we try that one, tribalism? In fact, I think that's exactly where we were in 4361
Yes.
BC, the last time Saturn and Neptune conjoined in Aries. We were coming out of our tribal situation and forming city-states of ancient Sumer and Egypt. And so we had one civilization that was ending 6,000 years ago and this one that was beginning.
Yes.
Now we're at the end of that one. So this is a great question, Matthew. What is the next then iteration of human civilization? If matriarchy failed and patriarchy failed, if city states have failed, if capitalism fails in that, absolute power corrupts absolutely, what,
Hey,
oh, what
I,
would be the next iteration? I would almost surmise that another planet is due to be discovered.
well, yes, absolutely. And incarnating souls from other planets expressing themselves. And what do we have, which is very Aquarian? We have this growing presence of transgender and non binary identities which are neither entirely masculine nor entirely feminine, there could be some very marked healing. And I'm bringing that up as just one point, addressing your point, Ryan, about if the masculine failed and the feminine failed, something that's non-binary, there's an archetypal
Well,
healing,
silicon is
perhaps.
non-binary, is genderless, you know. I'd say
Right,
AI, from carbon-based to silicon-based. It's the next step.
right,
How
right.
about an integration of the masculine and the feminine? How
Absolutely.
about just mix them together
Well,
and
that's what
have
I was
a
referring to with
balance
non-binary.
between?
And
I mean, that would be non-binary, sure.
Ryan,
So,
Yay.
as
your
a
reference,
transgender person, I can tell you from my own experience that we are all working on a continuum, you know,
Yes.
and we move like the tides, the high
Yes.
tide and the low tide through our days from the masculine pole to the feminine pole.
Yes.
Look at the different hats and personas you wear at different places and times in your life. Are you the same person with your children that you are with your lover? Are you the same person with your lover that you are at work? No, these are different persons within you. They sometimes have different ages and developments and genders. Some of them are more assertive, some of them are more timid, but they're all you. You know
Yes.
to handle them wonderfully because you were adapt naturally to do that. You've been constrained by models that everybody understands now are outdated. We're searching for the new, in a way, how you call it, like in mathematics, the new formula, but we're not there
Equation.
yet.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. And it's not about mixing in the middle. Everything that you just mix in the middle, it becomes, the middle point isn't interesting. It's the mainstream is the middle point in a sense. Our role as humans is to evolve beyond and above gender, like the eye on the top of the pyramid that sees these two poles, but is not in the middle of them, but way above them, and can truly choose whether it's going more towards this one or that one. It will.
The soul knows no gender and consciousness
Exactly.
knows no gender.
And I
Well,
truly feel
you
that
go ahead and explain that to the current powers that be.
I wouldn't even try.
we can continue speaking it out though, right?
absolutely.
But we
And
can
that's
hash it out and vent it out here and
yes.
hopefully inspire others to consider
That's
that
just
we're.
what I was going to say is I feel like I've said this for a while too. Neptune and Aries, this is one of the things that I feel it's going to be bringing us is this, if we think about Neptune as the great solvent, right? The dissolver, and Aries being I am. So yes, it's going to be challenging. I think it can be challenging when we lose these attachments to these identities or this, I am this gender or that gender or whatever it is that we've attached our identity to, but letting that actually dissolve and letting us actually become this continuum. I love that you use that word, Nia. It's like, and I'm on the spectrum of neurodiversity. So I love the idea of a spectrum anyway.
absolutely. And I just want to add one little thing. We did talk about it last time, but Ryan, your reference to 6,000 years ago corresponds with the last time that Saturn and Neptune came together at the very beginning of Aries.
Yeah, for sure. I could
Yes.
share that chart if you wanted me to.
Ryan, because I missed the beginning convo. I would love to hear more about what was going on 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, I don't really remember it. I mean, yoga, I can,
Okay.
I'm doing pretty
I can
good for my
regress you
age, but
sometime. I do regression.
All right, you didn't tell us you have cognitive issues too.
yeah, broccoli sprouts, that helps. But the only thing I can really remember from my past life 6,000 years ago, can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Let me.
Okay, share. It says it's disabled.
Okay, now you should be able to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I stopped the share.
All right, here we go. All right, on the chart on the left, we'll show the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at 044 Aries on the left, and the chart on the right from March 3rd, 4361 BC, shows Saturn and Neptune conjoined at 0 Aries, Aries
Wow.
and 3 minutes. That is the that is the next closest time of exactitude to February 20th, 26. There are a few
Wow.
times where it was later on in Aries, of course, but this is the closest to 0 degrees of Aries.
We've
So
also got a chart that's rotated 90 degrees. That seems significant at the
yeah, there's
angles.
sure there's a little bit of that, and the house placement is somewhat conjectural. That's about as close to the minute of exact conjunction, but again, we'll take that with a bit of nebulosity. Nevertheless, if we go back to 4361, again, what we had was the beginning of the ancients, the beginning of history, basically, a recorded history. Now, what happened prior to that? Now, if you want me to get all conspiracy theory and talk about, oh, I don't know, pre-diluvian civilizations, pre-flood civilizations, and maybe even going into crazy theories like Atlantis and Lemuria, what we can say for certain is that we have here the basically the intersection between prehistory and recorded history. Now that's really significant. And just about everybody alive today, if asked, well, has it been patriarchal or matriarchal the last 6,000 years? I think we could all agree that it has been relatively patriarchal and male dominated in all forms of civilization since then. And, benefits and liabilities. I mean, we've had some great things. We were able to fence in the sheep. We were able to plant raspberries in rows. And boy, could we control and take over our own survival at that time. It's just people wanted to hop the fence and get our raspberries and get our sheep. So we had to defend ourselves from those marauders. And so we had to be more aggressive and we had to control more and, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're here. So again, that everything that kind of we know percolated up from somewhere around this time or began somewhere around this time. So if let's just say there was a particular thought form, idea, or way of being that has been entrenched in consciousness for 6,000 years, and it happens to be, I don't know, erroneous or at the very least incomplete. Well, that's 6,000 years of neurological embedding that we have to dissociate, that we have to dissolve, that we have to break away, break free from. So my I guess, observation here is that we're basically looking at the last 6,000 years of the entirety of every system that has been built around male-dominated patriarchy and are calling it into question, wondering if it, I don't know, is really complete and the best thing for civilization. And I think what we're seeing that the answer is no. So we need to, of course, yeah, think of something new, but in order for that to happen, something else has got to happen. That's the dissolving of the old ways, dissolving Neptune of the old structures, Saturn, Aries of the patriarchy. And
Yeah.
so and so then we get to reimagine it. Yes, like everybody's been talking, and like Adrienne was talking about Goethe's famous quote, if everyone swept in front of their own steps, the whole world would be clean. And that's part of the Aquarian and the Virgo. And wow, if I just took care of myself and did everything I need to, then I'd be all taken care of. And then I'd have extra energy to contribute to the collective, and other people would too. And we could actually have, a pretty good civilization if we thought about it that way. So that's my
Ryan,
hope. Yeah.
Ryan, I have a question about something that you said that everything you're saying is I think really, really interesting. Um, about about the dying of, or recognizing that sort of the misogynistic form isn't working. Where I find my own mind going is that no human power structure simply surrenders control unless there's a coup, an assassination, a war,
An act of
structures
God.
otherwise. An act of God, right? Jesus separating the Moses separating the Red Sea. I don't know.
The
Well,
flood.
So what happens cyclically? You know, power structures die very,
yeah,
very slowly. I almost think of it as kind of
yeah.
a, I'm not looking right now at what Pluto is doing here, but I'm thinking about like this kind of slow burn crisis that Pluto can bring wave after wave after wave
Yeah, for
in
sure.
Aquarius.
And again, it's not like, 4361. It was like, okay, everybody, we're moving to Egypt. It wasn't quite like that. And of course, this is going to happen over a long time. It's just that when we really consider what is necessary for the change, we have to start with what psychologist Fritz Perls said. He said, consciousness is curative. So the very first thing we have to do, and what is happening now, and something that Virgo helps with, is we're becoming aware of just how thick, the enormity of the extent of the problem. Like, let's just assume, I mean, I'm just speaking conjecturally, like I really know, but let's just assume that I don't know, 90% of, the power structure of the world was involved in some, I don't know, illegal blackmail prostitution ring or something like that. If that was the case, then that means the good guys and the bad guys are all perpetrators. That means some of our heroes are actually villains. And that means that some of us with a real lot of love and hope and projection of what's possible for humanity are going to have some serious Neptune disillusionment. And that's
Yes.
where we say good,
That's
because we need to be disillusioned because it's the freeing from
yes.
illusion. So, yeah, so is it going to be like, oh, here's the Epstein list, and okay, there goes 90% of everybody who rules and controls monetary and finance and, government. And I don't know if it's going to be that quick and easy. Could
With
it be?
six
It,
million pages, disorganized pages released, which we know is not the totality of it.
And
Right.
they
I
no,
say
mean,
it
it's
might
going to
be
exactly.
be
connected to
interesting.
Yamamoto's Bitcoin, and there's over 1 million Bitcoins in that account. What would the million missing Bitcoins with no access to do to the Bitcoin and the digital currency market? So there's a lot of uncertainty, but a
Yeah.
lot of opportunity. And Ryan, I could listen to you for my whole life.
I know,
Oh,
really.
you
For
sweetheart.
real.
There's actually a story, a very interesting story about this transition, this time of transition 6,000 years ago to patriarchy, from matriarchy to patriarchy, that is connected to us astrologer, and it connects to the evolution of Venus. I had to prepare a few years back for the Queer Astrology Conference presentation about the ancient origins of Venus, and Venus being Aphrodite, and before that being Ishtar, and before that being in Sumeria, Inanna.
No.
Now, and this is amazing for me as a transgender person, because on the entrance to Inanna's temples, there were two big signs. Because remember, when the Greeks came up, they deprived Venus from its lethal, revengeful, wrathful,
Yes.
darker side that was there before. They took her power away and made her this nice blonde, girl from Cyprus. You know, she's very sweet and loving. You should meet her. And really, that's a symbol to what they did to women in general, in
Is
a
it?
Gave
sense.
them their identities without
Yeah,
allowing them to form their own identities.
exactly. And taking patronage over women. But these two signs, one of them said to birth and create worlds and to destroy them is yours, Inanna. To turn males into females and females to males are yours, Inanna. And all her priests were transgender women, including hormonal treatment by herbs. And when the Greeks saw all these dancing transgenders in makeup. They said, "What is this circus? You know, how could this be holy?" And they made a stop to it.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Just an anecdote.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for that. Um, I have two questions on this chart from 4361. I'm just going to name them both, and if anybody feels like they want to chime in. One is, I'm wondering if anybody knows what Chiron was doing at that time. I see it's not on the chart, and I just looked it up, and my digital ephemeris for 4361 under Chiron just says not applicable. So
Well,
I am wondering what potential medicine was there, what potential wound was being activated. And then the other question I have, just as a general topic for discussion, I'm just really stricken by the power of that grand fire trine. And I'm also looking that Pluto conjuncting Jupiter in Sag could be really righteous in its shadowy expression. Pluto conjuncting Jupiter, I feel like there was discussion around that in 2020 during the great Saturn Pluto, and then Jupiter conjunct around historical references to pandemics also. So just a couple kind of comments and points of inquiry. I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts on this.
I have a thought on it. One is that Jupiter, Pluto, and Venus in Sagittarius, where Sagittarius is natural law. I think it's really interesting that those planets are there. Venus, the value structure, the belief structure, everything's centered around natural law. And then that we have Moon and Mars conjunct in Leo, which is very interesting. Like, yeah, the individuating of the soul, perhaps even
in the Sag house.
In a Sag house, right? And then this Saturn, yeah, it's interesting that the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune are closer to the exact conjunction at 0, 0 than we are coming up this time around. I found that to be kind of interesting because we're at 44 minutes.
Let me just jump in real quick to
Yeah.
remind you that this is set for where Ryan lives.
Wisconsin, right? Yeah. So the houses don't really
Houses
apply.
are really not-
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
But
that's
the sun
helpful.
was
Thank you.
opposite that. The sun is opposite that moon and Mars, and that since the Aries rules Mars, and so then you look at the Mars in Leo, and then you look at the
Exactly.
sun, which is in Aquarius.
It looks like the beginning of the patriarchy, doesn't it?
So if that were the beginning, a chart for the beginning of the patriarchy I love astrology, over
Oh,
here
wow.
on February 20th, what is this the chart of the beginning of?
Hmm.
Mm.
I
AI,
think
The
Ryan,
extinction of the alpha male.
Ryan,
artificial intelligence.
Perhaps
I
the
think
other.
it's the beginning of a galactic society to
Yeah.
mention what
Ooh.
you said. We could discover something new in our solar system or our local group, so to speak.
Ding,
Well,
ding,
this
ding.
is what 3i Atlas says that's what's happening. Something new.
Something
Ding,
we
ding,
haven't seen before, and I think it's
Yeah.
we're
Ding,
headed
ding,
toward a
ding.
more homogenous society in terms of non-binaryism.
Ding,
Just
ding.
the collective whole being the unity through diversity. We being a shades of shades of beige society, and we're headed toward, well, with the Aquarian age. My teacher, of course, was Jeffrey Green, and he said that's pointing us in the direction of the next matriarchy. But he said, who would vote for a new matriarchy, and nobody raised their hands. He said, who would vote for a balance between matriarchy, the divine feminine, and the divine masculine? Everybody raised their hands. So
Yes.
we're
Right.
going toward a greater whole here, and I think we're looking outside of our little earthly sphere, so to speak, to a greater galactic family.
Yeah, but also, I mean, AI is going to completely transform humanity in ways that we can't even begin to imagine.
Well, we
Heck
can only
yeah.
hope it's for the good.
Right.
Well,
Well,
Marty,
Ryan's got to
guys,
take off here, everybody. It was an honor and a
Ryan,
pleasure
it's been
to
great
chat with
seeing you
you.
again.
Thanks,
Yep.
May the
Ryan.
force
Really
be with
appreciate you.
you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
everybody, feel
Ryan.
free to friend me on Facebook or shoot me an email. We can continue the conversation.
Will
All right,
do.
be well. Bye.
bye.
I was thinking
Bye.
about that too. When somebody mentioned, I think Matthew, you mentioned the conjunction of Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and Capricorn, and I think that was on the node of Pluto, was it not?
Yes.
If someone can remind me. So I think that was
Close
also a
to
very
it.
big seeding point to, this shift that's happening, it's coming.
And
was
it was on an
on the
eclipse as well.
Mm.
Yes.
Guys, is it
I've
also
forgotten
not
about
just
that.
reminding the powers that be you're not the most important being? People are trying to control everything. It's like, we talk about, galactic community coming forward. It's reminding the human beings you're not that important in the bigger scheme of things. It kind of like just, I was going to use the word pipe down a bit.
That's true, Rob, and I would also point out that with the Saturn Neptune conjunction on the verge, well, on that 0 degree of Aries, Aries is the animalistic spirit in all of us. And so that represents pure instinct. It represents the moment that we're born, that we seek comfort and warmth and nurturance from the mother. So we all have that common denominator, and it includes the human and the animal and the plant and the mineral kingdom.
Interesting, yeah.
Gaia, the love for Gaia. Yeah.
So where would we like to go now?
So, first of all, I think we should address the current situation geopolitically, Iran and stuff, if you want. But before we move on to the next subject, let's try and think what tools can we give to handle these times better? What can we do as individuals to strengthen the positive process, hinder the fears and anxieties? What should we remember? So let's try and concentrate on that a minute, like both for ourselves and the people watching.
Well,
I don't have the answers.
the first thing that popped into my mind was being grounded. Just not allowing our heads to just take off, and to stay grounded inside and
Rooted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see gardening in front of me, like as an analogy,
That's my
do your own garden, cultivate your own garden. That's the only way, only by becoming a good gardener will this planet, society, your heart bloom.
Organic farmer over here.
yeah, and Ryan is too, who just left. And
Really?
And I think about one of the things that I teach and one of the things that I teach, I can't think of the other word I'm trying to use, but is like psychic hygiene, energetic and psychic hygiene. And that sounds kind of woo-woo or whatever, and it's not really meant to be, but just think of all the energies that we're in, not just the cosmic energies, but other people that we are around all day, every day, the, electronic radiation and whatever it is that the energies that we're in that all the time. And so especially with all the Uranian Aquarian energy that's very electric. Sue used the word buzzy earlier, and I'm like, that's exactly how I've been feeling. It definitely can make our nervous systems heightened. And so doing anything that can help ground. I love the idea of grounding. So getting into the earth, using breath work. There's something called dry brushing. So it's just like the intention of I'm getting rid of this energy that's attached to me throughout the day, and maybe bathing or showering some water that's that element that brings in something a little different than all the electricity and fire.
Or just even
Clarity therapy.
outside and going for a walk.
Absolutely. Movement is very
connecting to nature, meditating.
It's
Mhm.
going to be
Most of all, I
especially
find my
important.
biggest tool against evil is thanksgiving for the little
Gratitude.
things, not taking anything for granted. Your next breath,
Gratitude. Yes.
Gratitude is your greatest tool.
Gratitude.
That's what I believe. And I can say that being here with all of you people has always been and still is a very strengthening, you know, um, experience for me. So connecting with community, not being there
Yes.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think part
Uranus
of
going
that
into Gemini.
I think part of it is also looking to spirit or source or higher consciousness or whatever any of us may define as some kind of higher power, higher perspective, to begin to, levitate our own consciousness, therefore also slowing down the mind and the fear mentality, to look at it through a spiritual lens. I'm teaching an online class starting in March called Courageous Intuition in Chaotic Times. I taught psychic development and channeling many, many, many times for a long time, but this is a class that's really about tuning in with spirit and higher consciousness,
Nice.
pulling topics from the news to be able to then be a channel and look at what's going on from a bird's eye view in this bigger picture when we remove ourselves energetically from the more egoic and fear-based lens that certainly the media perpetuates.
Yeah.
Astrology helps us to do that.
If I could interject something really quickly on the heels of what Matthew and Rob and Nia just said, I've been watching the Walk for Peace with the Buddhist monks, and part of what I was going to show in my little video, which I'll try to see if I can show it next time, is Bhikkhu Panakara saying that they were walking through the so-called literal battleground states through the South, from Fort Worth, Texas, to Washington, D.C. They walked through all of the southern states and up the eastern seaboard of North America, the Carolinas and the Virginias, where all the major Civil War battles took place. And as we talked about last time, Neptune conjuncted Aries. Neptune conjuncted Saturn in Aries 165 years ago, a Neptune cycle at the beginning of the Civil War. So we're in those times again. But if I can try to condense this and say it really quickly, what's really interesting to me, when Nia mentioned gratitude, Bhikkhu gave a speech yesterday at the church in Washington, D.C., and he said, we've been walking through all these states with so much history. It makes me very sad because of so much sadness, war, and anger, and people are still holding on to that anger, the Civil War, so to speak. But the Civil War is universal. I'm not just speaking about North America. There were representative times during the mid 1800s that were Civil War across the globe. Okay, I'm not speaking nationally, but he said there's so much sadness there. How do we bring peace to the ancestors? We pay gratitude, and we start each day with "Let me walk in peace." That's how we heal the land. Neptune and Aries, we heal the land. We do something active. We start with peace in our heart. We give gratitude for every day. He says, I don't care if you have one bean or two beans, you say gratitude for that bean. And I think Nia just missed all that. But on the heels of what he said, you live in gratitude and you live
I'm
in
hearing
peace.
you all along. Don't worry.
And that's how you heal the past and you heal the land.
Didn't the last eclipse run across Texas and part of the Southeast?
Yes.
I remember Pam Gregory was talking about that. She's a London-based astrologer. So it's interesting. 6 months, half an eclipse cycle later,
It
to have
actually,
the Buddhist monks walking across part of that territory.
yeah, it
Right.
actually went up.
Went right across the
Well,
whole
the Buddhist
country.
monks are astrologers. Let's remember.
Mm. I was thinking that another thing that we can be doing, and what I've been working on for the last couple of years, is shadow work, trying to dig down into that subconscious stuff, because what we're seeing in the external is everybody's shadow being projected outward because they can't bring it inward. And I think that by trying to figure out, what makes us angry, what makes us want to fight, what makes us want to swear, all of that stuff, and trying to heal that within ourselves, trying to understand it first, but then heal it, will go a long way for healing what we see outside of ourselves.
Adrienne, that's actually the South Node in Virgo, that victimization, right? And that polarity point is actually forgiveness for even feeling that
Bring
victimization.
it up, forgive yourself.
Yeah,
While it's
totally.
very difficult to do, forgiving the external, because it's the same, but
It's working against fear, like I feel it in my life all the time. Every time you need to update, you need to reveal another layer of yourself and in a sense, acknowledge another layer of yourself, you know? And that's, working against our own fear.
yes.
And that's the cause that some people are so terrified that they, project a certain image, but their inner selves is something totally different. There's a great gap between the public and the personal, in a
Mm.
sense, you know?
Yeah.
But as we
Yeah.
know, we have two poles. One is love and one is fear. And I think when it comes to Pluto, it's the most primal, essence that moves us.
Yeah.
What do we love?
I think we're going to be
What do
working
we
on
fear?
this. I think
You
that
know?
when the nodes move into Aquarius and Leo, this is exactly what we're going to be working on.
Yeah.
And I think that Neptune and Aries, one of the things, I'm going to get a little emotional, because Neptune and Saturn are actually just getting ready to sit on my Mars. So it's the same archetypes, right? The Neptune, Aries, Neptune, Mars. And my natal Mars is in Aries in the 12th. So what this has meant for me has been a journey of self-acceptance. And so I think Neptune and Aries, for all of us, what it could potentially be is this period of self-acceptance. And like what Adrienne and Nia were saying, this coming back into loving ourselves. And the more that we can have compassion for ourselves, the more we end up having compassion for the world and for those in it. So thanks.
With Venus near the North Node in Pisces, that I think that really captures the self-acceptance and the self-love. Also defined by something that is non-material because it's in the form of Pisces. It's releasing the end of the zodiac, releasing the attachments and coming into universal love, spiritual love, soul love. I mean, it captures the meaning of namaste.
Yes, it does. I love that.
I'm sorry for being, the bummer of the party, but again, I want to look at the shadow side of the
Bring the
Saturn.
realism.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
We got to look
Bring
at
it
all
on.
of it.
I've always found it an effect that could bring depression, or could bring, this vast rift that we were talking about could be depressing. It could, seem to be impossible. There's so much work to be done, And I think that some of the work is working against that uh, hopelessness,
Yeah.
I think that hopelessness, that you know, the solution, this feeling of the solution, it's a bit like people have felt in the Second World War when the Nazi war machine was advancing at unbelievable speed, and Tolkien was writing The Lord of the Rings, talking about how Gandalf is walking through the ranks and bringing back hope to the hopeless.
The final degree
And
points
I
of
see
Pisces are
your
also
roles.
very
I see
disillusioned,
all our
right?
roles, I see our viewers' roles. I see everybody's roles as being these Gandalfs right now,
Yeah.
sowing light through the ranks that have been affected by darkness. And in a way, sowing light through our own hearts, reminding ourselves that it's not hopeless, that yes, it's a lot of work, but we signed somewhere. And as I always say, show me the signatures. MFs, yeah, I want to see that thing. But we all signed. So, if we're here already, let's make a fable out of it. Let's make it something that would be truly apt to be sang about and told for ages to come.
I apologize. I
And
didn't
we
mean
could say that
to
we have
speak
been
over you.
a little part of it, a little part of it. I think that's a better ending to our story. And maybe that's something we should put in our minds as to something, a goal that we should work towards when that hopelessness and trepidation crawl into our hearts, something we can console them. And, oops, sorry. I'm going to mute myself, but that's about what I had to say. Relax them with.
I think part of the really difficult facet of Pisces can be disillusionment, aimlessness, a loss of faith, a loss of hope, victimization, powerlessness. And I think we're all purging some of that right now. I think we've all been in that through the Neptune and Pisces years.
Yes.
When I think of Neptune and Aries, I think of both the book and the archetype, the way of the peaceful warrior. It's finding a sense of empowerment. It's finding a direction of action. It's transferring or transitioning from disillusionment, loss of faith, feeling just lost out at sea into action steps, picking one foot up and putting it in front of the other. I forget who brought up, Adrienne, I think it was you who brought up the reference to the archetype of the Fool in the Tarot. Just knowing you have all of the tools that you need. You are aligned with the universe. You have your own skills. You don't have to know in your mind where you're going, but you're moving forward. As we pick one foot up and put it in front of the other, we are getting out of that stuck, foggy, aimless place. It's getting us, we're gaining traction. And that's important.
I think it's really marking a period of really coming to terms with a deeper understanding of the Piscean age as we're exiting out of that and transitioning into the age of Aquarius.
I always try and remind my teacher, Maurice Fernandez, his wonderful work about Neptune, the 12th house, and Pisces. And I love the way he named his book. Neptune, the end of illusion, the beginning of truth. And that's something very true in a sense, especially when it's conjunct Saturn. There's nothing, more realistic than that.
We have a tremendous juxtaposition now on our screens, on our computers, and that is between this current administration and the Walk for Peace. And when I watched the speech that Bhikkhu Panakara gave at the church in Washington, D.C. yesterday, it was so apparent the two sides coming together and which one was ready to yield and which one was unyielding. Like he talked about two rocks coming together and it just breaks both rocks unless one preaches or discusses or exclaims the one true religion, which is peace. And that's what he's exclaiming. And he represents the hero's journey that we always have throughout all time. There's always a representative of the hero. I think Nia mentioned Gandalf. I don't remember who did. I think Nia did. And right now we have a Buddhist monk, I believe is from Thailand, with a little dog. And they were in a church, and they had speaker after speaker speak up, elder monks saying, we live in a reign of terror. And these monks have been through the civil rights movement, and they said, we've never seen the likes of which we see today in terms of oppression of the young and the old and the children and, the reign of terror that's upon our land. And he just spoke out, and I'm thinking that's one domino. There's going to be somebody right behind him and somebody right behind him. And they all lined up and they all spoke of peace. And they all said, we have never seen the likes of this type of oppression upon North America in our lifetime. And we're speaking out against it now. And I'm thinking the chips are falling, the dominoes are falling. It's starting.
It's all
and we're witnessing
up
it.
to be let
And
go.
there are global protests going on speaking out against what's going on in the US. That is certainly historic for a country that has for the last 250 years been, on the international stage of a position of globally that other countries would emulate. So to have, I mean, masses of millions of people protesting, speaking out against what the U.S., what's going on in this country, this speaks volumes. And I love your references, Marty, to the Walk for Peace and the monks, which is beautiful.
You know, what's really interesting is we're on the cusp of the age of Aquarius. We're feeling it right now, and I could talk for 3 days. I'm sure many of us could talk about 3 days. But there's so much going on. It's a conglomerate. There's so much going on right now in terms of astrology. And another thing that Bhikkhu Panakara said in his speech yesterday is the world is moving very fast. And we are trying to hang on to it, and we are trying to catch up to it. We're chasing after it, were his exact words. He says, go within, calm down, meditate, say, I will walk in peace today, and just go inside and listen, because this whole Saturn-Neptune conjunction, we haven't even gotten to that yet, the chart yet, but that's happening on the 20th, is very subtle. It's Neptune and Pisces are the most inward of the archetypes, the most subtle and the most, in some ways, homogeneous. It includes everyone. It's a synthesis of all the other 12 signs. And so we need to go inside, and we need to breathe, and we need to calm down. And I think it was Sue who said we need to ground. We need to slow down and go within and listen.
Yeah, I was mentioning earlier before we got on the call that, all the Mercury retrogrades this year will be in water signs. So I think my hope is that that will be a place of cooling off, or a place of, slowing down in the midst of all of this air and fire and electricity that's going on. And especially Mercury as our mind. And that just reminded me, Marty, that, going inward and slowing our minds down a little bit and being more in the body.
Healing.
Yeah, the Mercury and water will do that.
One thing that Jeffrey mentioned when I studied with him in the 90s, he talked about this time in the 90s. He said, you better put sand in your shoes so you learn, yeah, Rob's agreeing with you, so you learn how to stay on the ground. He said it's going to go faster and faster and faster. He said, think of yourself in the 1930s and then think of yourself now in the 1990s is when he was saying this. He said it's going to be one day after another of like a 60-year, acceleration, one day after another. It's only going to go faster exponentially. And so he said, what does this mean that we're entering this time? And with the symbolism that we're looking at right now with Neptune and Saturn conjunction in Aries. And he said, somebody piped up and they said, we're going to fear that we're going to go crazy. And he said, yes, but what we are afraid of is the fear of going crazy. Remember, Saturn is just a little skeletal man in a cloak, and he's not real. So we're fearing the fear of going crazy. But if everybody goes within and finds their balance and their grounding within and seeks spirit, we're going to be just fine.
I think it's going to feel like we're going crazy because the reality is going to shift so quickly. It will be disoriented.
It is already disorienting.
Yeah. But I'm really thinking a perspective change that's just sharp, particularly when Uranus gets into Gemini. We won't recognize. In fact, I heard somewhere, I can't really place it. So many people are talking about this shift that's coming, but that I think it's about the 20th that it will be something that people in the future talk about for a long time. It'll be like this, what is happening will be so stark from what has been.
Do you want me to bring up the ingress of Uranus into Gemini?
Yes, that would be nice.
I was looking at that earlier too, and Venus is right there at the same. So I think that that's a repeating theme, or maybe a reminder that of where Uranus has just been through Taurus. And so again, it's that connection to our values and understanding what our own, where we hold on to our own self-preservation and what will take us forward, I guess, is where I was going with that. But we'll look at the chart.
It's funny because we had a little taste of it when it went in before it retrograded back. And I was trying to remember, like, what happened then? I can't even like remember what happened. So I didn't have any reference point as to we're heading back in there.
I did the same,
Granted,
Adrienne. I was
grant,
thinking the same.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Granted,
is.
as a Gen Xer, I'm not on the up and up with all the tech, but isn't it just like this past year that like Chat GPT has really caught up speed and, the integration of AI has grown
Oh,
tremendously
yeah,
just
yeah,
this
yeah,
past
yeah.
year. It's even affecting our Google searches. Google has changed
Oh, yeah. You're
within the
right.
past year. So that could be a beginning.
Yeah.
Pluto
Yeah,
and
you're right,
You're
Matthew.
right.
Yeah.
it all happened with Pluto, and when Pluto went into Aquarius, and then Uranus kind of tipped into Gemini briefly, and it
What's
accelerated.
the asteroid that's there?
Which one?
Next in between Uranus and Venus? I'm not familiar with that one.
Sedna.
Okay.
Sedna.
Sedna.
Yeah, Sedna actually, I think, plays a big role in the Uranus ingress.
Could you elaborate on that, please?
And that she just
one word.
ingressed into Gemini after like what, 20,000 years or something? Like she's got a
Right.
really long transit or really long orbit.
Do
Yeah,
we
I
know
think
her
it had,
symbology, like what she's known
well,
for?
okay. Yeah, well, Sedna has to do with, I think it had something to do with the whole thing with Greenland and Iceland also. But yes, Sedna has to do with
Is Sedna the one that whose father pushed her off the
yes,
boat
her father
and
pushed her
cut
off the
her
boat,
fingers
and then
off and they became the
right, her
life in
fingers
the
became
ocean?
the whales and the dolphins in the ocean.
Well, isn't that special?
But it's just her story is about reclamation of her own agency, I think, as well.
Yes.
Like how she took that tragedy and became, who she became, a leader, her own tribal leader. So
Yeah.
I think it's my words are lost.
Well, then it's fitting that it's right in between Venus and Uranus.
And in Gemini, also looking at the flip side of the crisis. For every shadow, there is
all of
light,
those.
and vice versa.
Definitely. But I think that, as fast as we think that things are moving, when Uranus steps into Gemini finally, and settles into place, well, settles into place isn't the right analogy, but gets up to speed, then I think propulsion is going to be a main theme. I think it's going to get much faster.
Well, I find
And
it interesting that Mercury, the ruler of the Gemini, is in Aries, conjunct Mars. Speaking of accelerating and moving faster, here
And
we go.
initiation.
Yeah.
It's also Uranus is going to be squaring the nodes when it ingresses into Gemini.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Exactly. It's squaring the nodes, and Uranus is creating new phase from the north node, separating from the north node, and applying more pressure to the south node.
Well, isn't that
The
special?
moon also. The moon in Virgo also is exactly squared.
Yeah.
It's the whole Sedna thing all over again. We're being thrown off the boat and we're asked to turn into dolphins and whales now.
It is a transformation of sorts. I mean,
Well, and discovering our agency, I think.
Remembering our agency, maybe, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but
I like
mean,
remembering.
that's my remembering word that I use with Uranus. So thank you for bringing that back up.
But we can't avoid the fact that in this story, patriarchy has the upper hand of sorts and throws us off the boat. So whoever thinks that the powers that be are gonna walk away nicely because they understand that something isn't working is, delusional in a sense.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Those in power don't often give up the power easily. I think
No,
someone said that
it's
earlier.
got to
So
be taken.
Isn't it
And
Right.
interesting that the peace monks came to Washington, D.C.? They're actually there today as well, but they came to the church in Washington, D.C., and they did not meet with the current occupant of the Oval Office. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
There was no meeting.
And I think that that speaks to me to sometimes the only way to win a game is to not play.
wow.
Now we're here, we live in this world, we have to be participants in it, but there are things that we can choose to withdraw our energy from. And I think Ryan mentioned that earlier, maybe Matthew, you mentioned that at the beginning, that there's protection of our own energy. It's not that we're not aware of these things, it's not that we're not doing what we can, but there is a certain amount of needing to withdraw, our attention from that craziness to stay here, to come back here. And I think, Adrienne, you mentioned that too, as the nodes shift into Aquarius Leo, our south node will be in Leo.
No
So
matter how right we may think we are, we can't force our rightness onto somebody else. We can't force our lens or our place of our bodysuit of consciousness, our expression of consciousness onto somebody else. And each
Guys,
person
yeah.
has the right to live and breathe and express where their place of consciousness is. That's part of the nature of Earth School, is that it gives us this really, really diverse platform of learning.
Yeah. Guys, I also feel that we have to, like what Nia's been mentioning, the dark side of this is people being aggressive and verbally aggressive, trying to get their point across. You know,
Sure.
it's being open to the fact that as much as we want to see the light, the potential here could be screaming the complete opposite. The last time Uranus went into Gemini, we had world wars. We can't, shy away from that fact. It's just being realistic with what could potentially happen. Of course, with Uranus, expect the unexpected. That's a big thing with that energy. And it can be just literally sudden, events happening suddenly,
Yes.
thought points coming up suddenly, things just shifting quite suddenly. So it's just and it's going back to being able to just be centered within the self in terms of the work we can do as individuals within this collective world that we live in. And it's being mindful as much of course we'll be living through this, hopefully. And it's just being conscious of what can I do to help progress the world in the way we want it to be. And I'd like to think everybody here is on the same page as wanting, collective evolution for humanity, for Earth, and just stepping forward from that intention. Intention's everything. And the
Yes.
biggest thing that human beings have is choice. And we've just got to move forward with that, I feel.
And I think it's really important for us as practitioners, as astrologers who work with clients, face clients and viewers, to hold space for that. I mean, I don't claim to know that I have all the answers. I can look at a chart and I can draw these things out. And I think I speak for many of us that we can make these connections, we can see these patterns, and we can offer support, offer, guidance for, maybe a transit or something. But I feel, yes, Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius, all of this energy that's moving fast, and then Neptune, Saturn, and Aries, it's the fire and air, right? The fast moving changes that people will, and somebody mentioned this earlier, I think Marty, that feel like we're going crazy. And so they're going to need a place to land. And so I think that, it's just a good reminder maybe that, that's what I do. That's what I think a lot of us are doing in our practices. So yeah, just putting that out there.
Kara, I think that was really beautifully stated. That's so important. A week or two ago, I was going on a hike with two friends. two of us are spiritual channels, and I'm an astrologer, and the third friend, who's also very, very spiritual and has done a lot of his own work, is from Iran. His whole family is in Iran, which is being bombed and blown up. And we got into this whole philosophical conversation about like what's the meaning of it all. And two of us were kind of coming from this place of a collective evolution. But when your entire family is in a country that's being bombed, how do you sit? You can't just start spewing spiritual jargon. And at a certain
Yeah.
point, I just kind of stopped and looked at the friend. His family is there. I said, "Could I give you a hug?" And he just said, "Yes."
Yeah.
And to just really be with the humanness, because all this collective stuff is still landing in people's individual charts. They're not coming to us as astrologers to say, "Oh, I want you to do a reading and tell me what's going." I mean, sometimes that comes up, but generally not. They're not coming for an individual reading to say, "Here's this thing that's going on in the news." They're coming because all of this, I'm pointing at the screen with my hands, but is going on in there. It's activating something profound in their individual astrological charts, because the
Yeah.
collective is comprised, as several of you pointed out really eloquently earlier in the talk, it's comprised of all the parts of the individuals.
You know,
There's
Matthew,
the
that's
humanness.
really interesting. You're talking about activating something in your chart. Well, look at what this chart is activating in all of us, or will be activating. And again, when I look at the North Node in Pisces, which is ruled by Neptune, our pineal gland is being activated big time right now. And the pineal gland is controlled by melatonin, which rules sleep and dreaming and meditation. And so, again, I go back to the Walk for Peace. What are they saying? Go within, seek peace, seek loving kindness and peace and the one true religion, and live your life that way, and go within and be quiet and dark and small. Virgo, 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 South Node. But if you look at that, we're developing our pineal glands big time right now. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're preparing for a lot of what this chart is showing us, with the Uranus and Gemini coming up in April. We're going to have to be ready for that. And the pineal gland is how we react to the sun. It's how we react to the nature and the quality of the light that's coming to the earth. And so we want to really develop that dream time, say our prayers, do our meditation, go within, because we're going to need it to, as Jeffrey said, keep our shoes on the ground. He says you're going to put sand in your shoes to stay on the ground. And he gave a story about what is going to happen in these times, and he gave the story in the 90s. And he said it's like a bunch of yuppies get on a yacht with a case of martinis, and they get really high, and they get out in the middle of nowhere. They're having a great time, and they get developed by a great fog. And the tendency is to start to freak out. And what they don't know is if they would just go within, there's a natural compass within Neptune. It will always bring us to another shore. If they would only know to calm down and cultivate that link to Neptune, which links us to Creator, they will always find their way. And they will always know to be steered by the inner compass. So we're finding our inner compass right now.
Yeah.
And we are teaching it. We are enlightening and educating others, especially the children. The children need real truth and real teachers to glom onto.
Yeah.
Marty, that was just really beautifully stated. That was really
Yes, it
eloquent.
was.
I didn't say it, Jeffrey
That
did.
touched me. Well, the way you narrated it, for me, that was very moving.
I've been thinking a lot about that statement that Jeffrey made, particularly where we have this whole Gemini thing with so many different things coming and what to believe is true. And there's just so many different, that the way that I perceived it was just like, it might as well be a fog. Just so much that in that place of fog, the only way the inside has to turn on. And I think that this is part of Jupiter and Cancer. We're just opening up this inner side. We're opening up our intuition. Like, this inner world is going to help to guide us. And then part of what's happening is we have to learn how to trust ourselves, because the outside world is getting crazy. And we could be full of fear, but if we want to stay in love, I think turning inward is the way to go. And then I don't remember who said, but like joining with other people of like minds to come to make these small communities of this is how we're going to make it through these times.
I love that you said the building of trust, because that's one of the things that I talk about. I mean, that's what I do. That's my work, is helping people build self-trust. So I work in a coaching. I use the astrology and coaching for those of you who don't know me, but and I bring that together, and that's really big for me, is because that's been my journey. Is, we've been so disconnected from that inner compass. We've not been taught to pay attention to that. And I think part of the children that are the Pluto Capricorn kids, and especially the Pluto Aquarius kids, these are my grandchildren, that I'm responding to them because they're coming in already having a different kind of connection, is what I'm seeing. So I just think it's beautiful.
Also, guys, one of the main reasons why I became an astrologer, I'm sure you guys did too, was to come back to the inner compass, to reawaken that knowledge. So yeah, I just wanted to add that because that inner compass is the way home.
Yeah.
I think we also, with all of the Pisces shifting to Aries and also still having the North Node in Pisces, I think part of accessing that inner compass and part of transmuting the fear and just our the way our nervous systems can get so readily and easily frazzled, I think there's really an important role for creativity. Whether it's painting, drawing, dance, acting, theater, music, gardening, to just kind of move and express, I think is so important.
You know what I find? I have a lot of Virgo in my chart. Like the solar eclipse is going to bang on hit my nodes of the moon. So I know the next year is quite powerful for my own journey. I find just writing. I could just be writing just whatever thoughts are in my head, whatever, has happened during the day, just writing it all down. Because at the minute I'm finding that I forget, could be an age thing. But then going back and reading those journal prompts from just like a month ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was powerful, or that was synchronistic. So you kind of end up seeing that as much as there's chaos, there's also a guiding light that's kind of edging you forwards. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do as well.
I
In this
love
chart here,
that. I love that you said that. And I think that that's just real quick, I want to say about the movement that Matthew was expressing, and Rob, that doing something with the body. I think it's so important to move that energy through the body somehow, whether it's, all the things that we've mentioned. Yeah. And then I think it's beautiful that, because I do this as well. I mean, I have a lot of Gemini energy. So writing these things down and then going back and looking it over, and that's who I was, or that's who I thought I was, or that was this, and just maybe even seeing the growth, I think helps to remind us that we do grow and change, we evolve. I mean, that's the whole, purpose of, not the whole purpose, but part of the purpose for being here, right, is that evolution. So
Nia, a point that you were making earlier about some of the shadow side of all of this, and somebody else referenced the violent side. I mean, with all of that Aries and Mars coming into Aries, I feel like it's when Mars ingresses to Aries, that is a really marked initiation that is like the combustion of the engine in whatever form it may take, for better, for worse, for lightness, for shadow, for change in whatever way. And yeah, that could be a really violent period of days or weeks. As there's that mark, I just feel like, this whole stellium in Aries, coming as we cross the equinox, we're looking, Saturn, Neptune, we've got Mars in there, Mercury in there, Sun in there. It's like when Mars comes in, I feel like it's like that shebang.
Yeah, we'll certainly kick off the Saturn Neptune. As a timer. It'll definitely be a new escalation, shall we?
I
initiation.
can't remember what
point.
was the date for that.
Mars into Aries.
Yeah, isn't
No,
that in March?
yeah, looks like the end of March.
Should be in March, yeah.
'Cause you might have drawn a chart for that. I can't remember.
It's April 9th, actually. Mars ingresses into Aries April 9th.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And at that point, Saturn will be at 6.5 degree Aries. Neptune will be at 2.5 degree Aries. So certainly before April is over, Mars is therefore very quickly catching up with Saturn and Neptune.
Yeah,
Yes,
why
and I
don't- why
appreciate
don't
in
we,
this chart that of Uranus ingress to Gemini that Mars will now be in a new phase to both of those.
Oh my gosh, Pluto is moving quick.
Yeah.
Oh, we're at 90 minutes. I'm wondering if we should, Marty also has a chart of Uranus on its own node. And I'm wondering if maybe we should save that and the Mars ingress into Aries with, Saturn and Neptune for our next
Yeah.
get together.
And then we're gonna also move on to the lunar eclipse. So yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
we'll have to pick up with that next time.
Do you have a date, Robin?
Not yet, but it'll be within the next month.
Okay, because the lunar eclipse is March 3rd. So
Okay.
I don't know if we want to do one in between eclipses or wait until after the lunar eclipse.
Support group, like, hey, everybody, how's this eclipse season going for you midway?
Or wait till afterwards and go, whoo, we made it.
Oh
I don't
gosh.
know about anybody else, but just looking at the lineup of the solar eclipse with this particular cycle, there's a part of me every time I look at the solar eclipse chart, I almost forget, like, oh yeah, we have the lunar eclipse coming 2 weeks later. Haven't even looked at that one.
I know.
Right.
I haven't
Okay,
got
sign
there
up
yet
for the
either.
So
Solar Eclipse
powerful.
Anonymous group. You'll get a 20% discount for the Lunar Eclipse group,
Right.
Well, and we didn't even look at the solar eclipse with the Sibley chart either. So
Right, I have that drawn up too. Yeah, there's so much. So yeah, we'll just have to have a lot of meetings, every few weeks. I'll look at the calendar and I'll try to organize something pretty soon.
okay, that sounds good. Yeah, maybe in between eclipses, like Matthew said,
Yeah.
a support group for
Yeah.
Maybe the end of February I can get something together. Yeah, in this chart here, the nodes are right exactly on my sun.
Mm.
Well, they are exactly. I'm going to be having a nodal reversal on right there. Those are my.
We got a
Square
lot,
of my nodes.
got a lot of Virgo Pisces nodes in this group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the North Node is going to be crossing my moon with the eclipse.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. So we're all in this.
Yeah,
Isn't
we
that
are.
interesting? We happen to be in this particular set of discussions. Yeah.
I'm
I
in
love
it
the
more than I want to
combination.
be.
Okay. So does anybody have any any burning things that they want to say before we wrap up?
If
I just want to say thank you to
I'm
everyone.
appreciating all of you.
Yes.
Likewise.
Definitely. Definitely.
if I could,
And
Sue,
there is something I want to say. And it's funny that the transgender Jew talks about Jesus, but I do follow Jesus, I love his way. And his favorite saying for me is don't give pearls onto pigs. They would not understand their value. Their wrath would be upon you. They would stumble them with their legs. Give to Rome what belongs to Rome, and to God what belongs to God. I'm paraphrasing, of course,
Right.
And that is a strong cautionary. I mean, we are people of light. We are people of love. We are people of community and forgiveness. But there's a medium that we have to work with. We have a shield or a rose in one hand, but we do have, a dagger in the other, in a sense, in this world. And give love unto those that would receive that love from you, and would understand that love from you. Don't necessarily waste your time, with wars that are, we have to really choose our battles now and choose how we direct our energy, because there's a lot of work to be done. And we don't want to get exhausted or lose our hope along the way.
Thank you, Nia.
Absolutely.
That's
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
words out of
Thank
my
you all.
own mouth. But I just want to say real quickly, at 4:30 today, Pacific time, there is going to be a loving kindness meditation given and guided by Bhikkhu Panakara. And if you Google it on YouTube, I'm sure you'll find it and you can join in.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Is this from
Thank you.
from Washington, D.C.?
Yes,
Okay.
4:30 Pacific time. I'm going to be there.
Good
Okay.
luck. And thank you all for doing what you're doing.
Thank
Yes,
you
thank you,
all.
everyone.
Thank
And
you.
we'll
This has been
see
wonderful.
everyone again
Namaste.
soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.